Hi guys, Mr. Miller here. When Mrs. Fuller reached out to the students here, or the teachers here at Brady, to find teachers who are willing to record some videos about growth mindset to show to her students and to our students here, I was very excited to record one because growth mindset is something that I am very passionate about, very interested in, and something that I think is real and is a big thing in our schools that people need to be aware of. I don't think it's a fad. Some people might think it's a fad. I don't think by any means it is. I try to learn a lot about growth mindset and things like that, like reading Carol Dweck's book Mindset. She's kind of the originator of the science of growth mindset. Listening to her TED Talks and other people's TED Talks. I read the book How Google Works, which is by the two not CEOs, but two of the major players in Google's success, and they talk about a lot of things of how they praise that risk taking in their company, reading things by Daniel Pink and things like that, but I learn a lot about growth mindset. I see growth mindset a lot in my own kids. I have a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 7-year-old, and you think about the things that you do during those time periods. You learn how to walk, you learn how to ride a bike, you learn how to read, you learn how to remember your letters, and a lot of failing happens as you do those things, and parents work really hard to teach their little kids that that's failing is safe, failing is good. You know, you fell off your bike that time, but we're going to get right back on it and try again. And then as we get older through school, we start to fear that failure. Oh, I messed up on this test, and there's not the, oh, I'll just try again. There's a little bit of a sadness, and you're afraid to fail. And when kids are little, we learn that failing is how we learn. And so it's scary that we lose that as we grow older. I think my first memory of myself having a growth mindset was when I was a middle schooler. I was a straight A student all the way through middle school. Everything came very, very, very easy to me all through elementary school. And when I was in either 7th or 8th grade, I don't remember which it was the first chance that I had to take an accelerated class in school. And I took an accelerated math class. I was taking algebra along with a group of my classmates in my grade. And it was a very difficult course for all of us. And it was the first time that school had ever really challenged me. And it was hard. It was stressful. There was a lot of frustration coming from me because I had never experienced that. Some of you may be experiencing that now. And I just couldn't figure it out. And I went to my dad, who was a smart guy, but he couldn't figure it out because he hadn't done textbook algebra in decades. And so finally I buckled down and I figured out how to teach it to myself. I sat down every day in my study hall. I opened up the book to the section we were doing that day, even if we didn't have a quiz. I picked some of the odd-numbered problems because the answers were in the back of the book, and I would do them until I got them right. And the thing was, if they were wrong, I would figure out why they were wrong. So not only was I forcing myself to grow, but I was forcing myself to learn from my mistakes. We didn't call it a growth mindset then. I didn't know it was something impressive that I was doing then, but I look back on it, and I'm proud of myself for doing that. And I've seen it throughout my life, too. I used to be a math teacher, was where I started. I taught in a school district my very first year coming out. I taught freshman and sophomore math at a high school, which I only taught there for 1 year because I was laid off due to some budget cuts. But it was a horrible year for me. I was not a good teacher. I did not have good classroom management. Learning did not happen at nearly the levels I thought it would because I just didn't know. I'd never done it before. I wasn't prepared for my job. And now I think when I teach in a classroom, I believe that I'm a very good teacher. And I believe that's the case because I learned from those mistakes and I forced myself to continue growing. I didn't quit. I kept going. And kept getting better at it. And so through most of those years, I was a math teacher, and I saw the lack of a growth mindset in my students a lot of students having that fear of math. I'm just not good at math. I just can't do math. I'm never going to be good at it. And that always frustrated me. And I try to talk to my students about, no, you could do this. I believe in you. I'm going to help you do it. That's hard. After teaching math and a year of science, I taught a STEM course at my old school, and we did a lot of coding, we did some computer-aided design, and we did like STEM challenges, like design a car with a balloon and a straw that can go 10 feet. And things like that are hard for students, or at least were hard for my students, because there's not right answer, wrong answer. There's either it works or it doesn't, and if it doesn't, you try again, whereas on a test, it's like, got the wrong answer, whatever, test's over. But I was teaching my students that they had to keep trying. They had to get it right. And if you tried coding, you know, the same thing happens there. If your code doesn't work, you've got to go back and find that error and fix it. So I saw a lot of that lack of a growth mindset and the discomfort of trying to find the growth mindset for students. It's hard. I use spreadsheets a lot in my work, and I work really hard to make my spreadsheets do things for me, to automate tasks that I have to perform, and to make me work more efficiently. But to do that, I had to learn how to do it. And so when I get to a thing I want a spreadsheet to do, I say, okay, I don't know how to do this. How can I make this happen? And I spend the time learning, and then I get better at it, and then I try another thing, and I keep getting better and better and better. Uh, in the time since then, I came here to Brady in technology integration, and I've experienced growth mindset a lot here. I've attempted a lot of initiatives here at Brady that were total flops, and I could admit that. Some of them I've had to just completely pitch because they just weren't good, and some of them I've had to completely redesign because they were good, but I was doing it wrong. So I learned a lot from that, and I really try to fail forward with the things I do here, and feel free to take risks. I have to be. Otherwise, you're not going to make anything happen if you're not taking risks. I also work with a lot of teachers who are truly technophobes. They grew up in a world different from what you as students are growing up in, where technology wasn't part of their everyday life, where technology wasn't part of their school experience, where technology just kind of popped up during their teaching career, and they've labeled themselves as not good at technology. And it makes me cringe when I hear that, but you understand where that comes from, because we all say that about something in our life. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at spelling. I'm not good at riding my bike. And teachers, because they're a little bit older than you, sometimes say that about technology, and it's really hard to break them out of that cycle, to give them that confidence. And so I hope you guys as students, when you see your teachers try new things with technology, you realize just how much courage that takes for them to stand up in front of a group of 20 students, do something they've never done before on technology that they're a little bit intimidated by, and run the risk of the entire lesson being a flop, and have 20 sets of eyes and maybe a co-teacher or two looking at them and going, oh man, that didn't go well. And they know they have tests that you guys are graded on at the end of the year that reflect back on them, and they're taking some huge risks. So I hope you guys recognize that. I also just today, I was teaching a lesson in Mr. Capostacci and Mr. Blackard's classes, and the lesson didn't go perfectly. It didn't go according to plan. It went too long, and it went too long because of it just did. It was the way I planned the lesson didn't go right, and so I had to go to them afterwards and say, how can I make that better? And that's a really hard thing to do, and it's even harder for the person being asked, because they might say, like, oh, no, it was fine, don't worry about it, because they don't want to say something bad. Or they might say, well, here's what I think you could do. And that's hard for you to hear, but it helps. And some people will do that for you and some people won't. But constructive criticism really is the best piece of having a growth mindset, especially for teachers to be ready to grow. So I think the growth mindset is super important to be successful in school, in life, in everything. And I hope you guys are working hard to develop it yourselves.